lovely people. We have changed locations a little bit today because I'm in between editing some stuff, and I figured why not just pop in another video here while we can. So the question of the video today: can you work with multiple pantheons? And what does that mean? What does that entail? Now, if you don't know, my name is Sam, this is Shadow Harvest, and I work with multiple pantheons. So my overall answer, I think, to that question is a yes, but and. Like with so many things, I'd never look at anything simply. There are so many things to unpack when it comes to stuff, and this is something that I think overall is interesting because while I look back and reflect upon my interactions with deity as I started exploring paganism, there is some things that I kind of wish I did a little bit more and I was a little more thorough about. So grab a lovely cup of coffee. This will probably be a long one, but let's get into it. Most of my gods, if you don't know who they are, I work with Persephone, Sobek, and Loki. I have a little bit of a trinity trifecta thing going on here. All of them very clearly from different areas, all from different pantheons, and two of them kind of came to me. I wasn't necessarily searching for a god or a deity in any sense or form at the time when they popped in. I have videos about them back on my channel. I think I'll make like a deity playlist or something so people can poke through and look at those, because that'll be easiest to just do that. But Loki, I actually sought out myself in a weird way. It was a mix of me. I wanted to search to work with a male deity, and I was having multiple deities that came to mind. I was kind of poking specifically at the Greek and Roman pantheon, more so at first, and then kind of fell into Loki as I started researching more and more and more. Part of that, I think, came from just the fact that Persephone, because it was just such a, what the heck is this? I don't even know if I really believe in other gods. What does this mean? What does it not? There were a lot of questions coming up, but I kind of just like went with it and ended up fully really dedicating myself to her. And I do think that within my deities and kind of order in a way, while there is no one that is more powerful in that sense in any way, shape, or form, but there is, for at least me and my dedications when it comes to the amount with I work with her, the amount to which I give offerings to. Persephone is up top. Like, she is the one that so much of my stuff is going to, I give much more of my energy to her. She comes up more in my meditations. I'm asking her for more advice. She is kind of the one that kind of is overall looking down on things. I have a tattoo dedicated to her. Like, there is a level of situation going on with her that isn't necessarily occurring with the other two, though they are still very, very important to my practice. And also too, I think what came with the Persephone thing along with it is I do have an Italian heritage. That is where, although not a lot if you look down to my DNA, but culturally I grew up more of like Italian American in a lot of ways. That is the culture that has seeped the most in, has become the most present for me. And so that connection was really there and strong off the bat. But when I started looking into the Greek and Roman pantheons for a male deity to connect with, it was very odd that I could not feel that same connection that I did with Persephone for some reason. It was a little of just lacking. It felt too one-sided or off. A lot of my meditations that I tried to go in and like call out to certain ones, I read a lot of different books, little like traipsing on some of the surface layers of their myths. There's like, I reached out to Apollo, I reached out to multiple different ones, Hades. It felt constantly just like a door slamming in my face again and again, like nope, nope, nope. And then with Loki, it was very much a curiosity, a hesitance, but overall then the connection did seem to form and it was there. And I think part of that for me, I think, comes from the idea that as humans, we actually aren't singularly cultural very much anymore. Just by the fact that the world has become more globally connected, like, we're not as isolated as our previous ancestors were, and even back in the day they weren't as isolated either. Gods were clans first were constantly merging and at war with each other, and then, you know, suddenly they would band together and, you know, change places, locations, lines of countries were constantly, territories were constantly changing. And along with that then came the major religions of stuff, like people would take things and adapt. I think a lot of, when it comes to the ancient Egyptians, is a good thing of that there was Amun and then Amun-Ra, like things like mixed and stuff. Sobek gets mixed in with them at some point too. Gods weren't these static, this is their place and this is their thing and da-da-da-da. It was way more flexible the more you look into mythologies and how things changed as things went over time. And also too, we as people mix culturally, right? Like we're not all just staying in our little pieces. If we're going off of just our heritages and should you be aligning with the Pantheon and picking one and sticking with it, well, it's like, well, yeah, but my people and even culturally, I was raised with not just like, even if the Italian was the most overall thing, like I think of the idea that like my mom came from a big Christian background, and like, yeah, that she has a lot of those America cultural things, especially growing up in the South was like a big thing with her. But then also she was adopted by a Middle Eastern man. So guess what I have on the background? Like also part of my culture is that like my grandfather would make like that like thick Greek Armenian coffee, and then he would like read our coffee grounds. Like when I was growing up, there's ideas of belly dancing. I was going constantly Middle Eastern restaurants, cooking different foods, lahamajin, borek, all these things. Like those stuff does come in as well, and that's not even of my blood. That's just because, well, the patriarch of my mom's side was a Middle Eastern man, so this is now what we're dealing with. We as people, I think, fluctuate and do a whole lot more. So if you're looking at it just kind of like a culture parody thing, I'm a little like, about that, you know what I mean? Like that don't vibe right, no. And so with that complexity comes then the possibility of, oh yeah, I would like to honor the multiple different parts of me, of my culture, or maybe of a culture you've come into. If you saw my question of do the gods go with the land that you're on, it's another yes and but kind of answer and question and dialogue. If you then move to like a new place, the idea of maybe not connecting with the culture and the deities and the gods that reside in that place seems a little odd and off, but also you don't want to feel obligated to do that either. You want to bring your culture in and celebrate where you come from and all your things, while also honoring the culture there. And at what point does that blend over? When does that mesh? When does a weird hybrid thing start to happen? When do the gods start merging? I think of all the ancient clans and how the idea of like combining a certain god, or maybe one dropped off, one got chopped for another. The freaking Catholics being like, that pagan deity is now a saint. You're like, no, but yes, but no. Like, it's all very, people have been doing this for forever, this weird merging and mixing of things. So I think the idea that we as pagans shouldn't merge and mix our pantheons is a little bit of, to me on that front, because we as people have been doing it for forever. But when you get into their actual myths, I think it is very interesting to make sure that you are researching into the culture of the people that the deities that you are worshiping come from. Even if it is of your own culture, like there is so much to things, especially of the ancient peoples, pagans, and the anthropology and stuff that comes from the ancient world all the way up to now the modern day people that live on those lands and are the most like inwoven with the direct culture of it, as direct as can be. Ancient things change all the time. It's important because otherwise I think you end up missing out on some facts and certain things. Also, like, don't do a shallow brushing into their myths. It was interesting to me, and one of the reasons I think I warred so much was Sobek and including him in and not really knowing, because I thought I was like, I got two, I'm good, I'm at capacity, we're fine here. But like the crocodile was very insistent and just seemed to have this constant thing there with me, and especially because I've had a thing with crocodiles since my childhood. I used to have nightmares about them all the time. I also recently, not that recently, a few months ago, my mother sent my birth video to me randomly, which, why? But they were showing my nursery before I came into this world, and of all the freaking things, there was a stuffed crocodile toy in my crib. What? Who gives a crocodile toy to a child? When, what? Like, it was very random. I was not expecting that at all. I was like, Mom, you do see the crocodile, right? Because they know my thing with crocodiles. And they're like, oh, huh, that's funny. I was like, you think? Clearly it's been a thing since I was young. Anyway, beyond sidetracked there. But one of the stories of Sobek is the idea of these Sobek and these chaos fish. Like, that's a thing. Like, and I believe at the end of the myth, if I'm correct, he chomps them out, like no more chaos fish. If my memory is serving me correctly. It's been a while since I've read that myth. So, also, but who is known very much as a Mister of Chaos? Loki. Who also has a whole thing where to get away from some of the things that he has done turns very much into a fish. Loki. Killer of chaos fish. The actual chaos fish. This doesn't seem like it's going to work. And so that was one of the reasons why, a lot of ways, I was hesitant about bringing some other things on. I'm like, this feels off. Also, in a lot of my meditations, when it came to Sobek, it was like me in a weird swamp bayou-like situation surrounded by crocodiles, and I could see my other deities off on the shore keeping their distance, being like, this is not to do with us, this is all on you. And there was a level of, oh wow, am I having to pick one or the other? Like, from a very spiritual connection thing, it was a level of warring. And now, because when it comes to the blood thing, if anything, Egypt is not a direct thing that's in my, I think there's like a Ancestry.com and all that stuff is always up for debate of its 100% accuracy. And one of the things that I find always interesting is how much they update. Oh, we have new ideas, new DNA. We think your people came from this area, and it changes, it adjusts over time. If you didn't know that, whoever you send your DNA to sometimes will like send you emails and being like, oh hey, your DNA profile has changed. We've gotten new data to reinterpret your line of ancestry. And I always find that fascinating in some respects, because eventually they also narrowed down, like my father specifically is Sicilian as fuck. Very much that area had a lot of then mixing and meshing with Mediterranean, a little bit of Africa. Like, it's all mixing in together there, right? Hello? And then that reflects, therefore, in my DNA. There is a slight dabbling of other places in that area. I can't remember exactly what they call it, but it's a weird mixture of stuff that goes around. But it's not enough to be like substantial. It's very much of my 1%, my half a percentage of these other areas. It's like, man, not enough to count, I don't think, truly. So where's the connection to that, right? And it was another reason why it felt a little bit odd adding that in, especially when you're mixing in the pantheons, when maybe two of your deities could have a direct conflict with each other. Now, how I have personally resolved this is the idea that my deities don't so much in this way interact. In a lot of ways, if anything, it feels like I'm being handed off like a runner would a baton to the next one. It's like this one tags in, this one disappears. It's not a lot of times, I'm never like calling in all three into my spells. I'm never calling in all three into certain meditations. They seem to appear somewhat together here or there, but often it is a lot of like Sobek and Persephone, maybe a little Persephone and Loki. This Sobek and Loki don't really ever seem to cross. If you don't know about my meditations and stuff, a lot of it is just me going into and clearing my space, and then whatever pops up, what trickles up, I take that in as messages and see what's happening, and I interpret them. And I just let that kind of be. I think when it comes to the divine, the deities, understanding that if we think of them, and it is of your paradigm to think of them as conscious entities that are very much beyond us, then we don't necessarily need to know and prescribe to them what works and does not work for them. Like, they will let us know, right? Like, if they don't want to work or be in this situation, they ain't going to do it. You will, in a lot of ways, I think, get that kind of like slamming door situation that like I was getting when I was in search of a male deity to work with. And also then along with that, I think comes to this then searching into the myths and recognizing too where there are symbioses and things that align. One thing that of course many people have sought out is the idea that, like, yes, a lot of different god cultures seem to have like a lightning god or a god of the harvest. There are major themes that kind of reach out because they were things that were important through humanity in different levels. So of course there'd be a deity embodying them. I find it extremely interesting that change and shifting and dualities is a very huge part of my practice, and with that all three of my deities interact with that in some way. Persephone, spring and underworld. Loki, the god of chaos, never change, and chaos being good or bad. Sometimes he helps, sometimes he hinders. Sobek is very much a very interesting god to look at when you look into the ancient Egyptians, because some people feared the fuck out of him, reviled him, other people revered him. That duality is there with all of them, that level of shiftiness, of multiple faces, very much a thing with all of my gods. And so I think that's also why they work very well together. So that's something to pursue for yourself, I think, if you're looking into, hey, I'm going to work with multiple pantheons, I feel called to do so. I think looking into, one, how did these cultures mix in the ancient days? How are they mixing now? That is important context to have. Also, like, what is the underlying themes of some of these deities? You, I think, naturally as a person, correct me if I'm wrong or whatever, but you have dualities and stuff in you as well. But people seem to lean one more or the other. Clearly, I like the chaotic, the darker, those that have those elements happening. Maybe lean more towards death gods, like life-giving gods, harvest gods, whatever have you. See if there's like a theme through them that would allow them to work well together and kind of come within this thing in your practice. And also too, just allow them to be these separate things. You can have individual altars for them. I have different little offering plates for Sobek and Persephone specifically. Loki is very much of just, I give energies and that's about it. Like, have this, do chaotically with it what you will. You know, allowing them to be separate. You don't have to worry about, I think, merging them or getting them to work as much in tandem in general. I think if you know the full context of them and understand the complexities, and I think understanding how there might be moments of clashing, there might be moments of misreading. Also, be aware that there could be times where one deity gives you a message about something and a deity might give you a conflicting message about the same situation. There could be times of friction and of misrubbing, but then that's something to look into and to unpack and expand and broaden on throughout. Anyway, that's my opinion on all of this stuff. Comment down yours below. How do we feel about mixing pantheons? Would you participate in it? Would you not? Tell me why or why not. As always, being respectful in the comments down below. We do not patronize. We do not be rude or outright ridiculous. Okay? Because I will block randomly and without a care in the world about it. Got it? Good. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next one.